Is the Daybell prosecutor unprepared, or are they just thinking ahead, trying to avoid an appeal in Lori Daybell's death penalty case? Let's see what's new in Idaho and then look at a weird case of a South Carolina man who suffered a major heart attack while burying the woman that he just murdered. Let's talk karma and this week's crime recap on Profiling Evil. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Profiling Evil's Crime Recap. I've been in Europe for the past 3 weeks, and I haven't had the best internet connections, but I was able to still keep searching on the web and seeing what's going on, and I haven't stopped thinking about what's happening around the world. You may have heard my reports of looking into a case in Germany and talking about a couple of other incidents over there. I hope you'll take a moment, hit the like and subscribe button. Consider joining Profiling Evil and think about joining our sponsorship levels. Now, as we get started, I want to remind you that Profiling Evil has teamed up with Adventures with Purpose to pre-investigate cases that those guys are working on. In the last 10 weeks, we've been fortunate to add theories and geographic context to 3 cases where bodies have been recovered, some missing for as many as 19 years. So make sure you're subscribed to our friends at Adventures with Purpose. So, do you think that Lori Daybell's mental health is, as the attorneys say, extremely complex and fragile? It just may be that the defense and the prosecution are agreeing that she needs extra time to prepare a defense in her case. In reality, they're doing exactly what we predicted, and they're trying to move the trial to January to coincide with Chad Daybell's trial, saving costs and ensuring the attorneys have adequate time to prepare her defense. Now, remember, Lori and Chad's cases were originally bound over together to be held at the same time. Chad got a January 2023 date, but when Lori was found competent, she didn't waive her right to a speedy trial, demanding that her case happen within that 6-month period of time, making it October of this year. Well, that creates a problem for the court. They want to see this case tried once, both defendants at the same time. The Daybells, as you remember, are charged with multiple counts of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder for the deaths of 7-year-old Joshua J.J. Vallow, 16-year-old Tylee Ryan, both Lori's kids, and Chad's first wife, Tammy Daybell. You cannot look at this case and even after watching it for 2 years, not scratch your head and think, how did this happen this way? Well, what's really intriguing to me is the polar opposite court date request. Chad is wanting to have separate trials, but Lori wants to have them at the same time. Could this be a sign that these two lovebirds are disagreeing on what they might say in the trial? I mean, is it possible they're going to turn on each other? This one is really going to heat up. Now, at the same time this is all going on, Lori Daybell's attorneys are cautioning the court that she has the potential to be hospitalized again in the near future. I'm interested in what your thoughts are on this one, folks. I mean, do you think Lori's case is ever going to make it to trial? And will Chad Daybell move forward in January with or without his co-defendant wife alongside him in court? Please put your comments down below. But let's take a moment and talk about the good news coming out of Moab, Utah, and the murder of Schulte and Turner. You remember that couple in Moab about the time that Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito were wandering through town? Well, the good news has nothing to do with Dog the Bounty Hunter dropping in, saying publicly he's going to get the killer or the killers, the him or the her, and he's going to bring them to justice. Nope. This one's exactly like I predicted. The Grand County Sheriff's Office had a suspect in mind from the onset, and they finally announced it this week. Now, there's a lot of chatter going on in the public social media circles about whether the police really understood and knew who this suspect was or didn't. Were they surprised when he committed suicide? And were they really trying to find him? Why didn't they tell the public and start a dragnet? I don't know. Some people are even suggesting that they may have come out with information now because Dog the Bounty Hunter or somebody else would release the name without giving law enforcement time to find the person first. That's the key here, folks. Law enforcement is trying to find the suspect, if they knew about him, and interview him before the public or they tip their hand that they're looking at him as a suspect. Who knows? What we do know, though, is that this suspect is never going to be prosecuted. Why? Because he killed himself after he told somebody that he had murdered the two women. Now, Grant County Sheriff Stephen White, this is a friend of mine and a great investigator that I've worked a number of murder cases with during my career, announced that he believes that Adam Pinksewitz, and I don't know if I got that right, is the killer of Kylan Schulte and Crystal Beck Turner. Let's listen to the sheriff's comments as he made this press release a day ago.
So we're still working on this very hard. Take any questions.
It's 9 months to get to this point?
9 months to get to this point, and we're not done yet. We're going to continue to keep moving.
Talk to the families of both?
The families have been notified at this point, and yes.
What do you know about a possible motive?
At this point, it's still all being investigated. We're not ruling anything out at this point.
Did you work with Crystal?
They both worked at McDonald's. The indications we have is we don't know if they ever worked shifts together. It doesn't seem like it. They were off of each other, but they were both employees at McDonald's.
Any idea on any relationship he had with either of the two?
None at this point. It's, like I said, it's still all being investigated.
Do you believe you recovered the weapon involved?
We have not recovered it yet. Without it still being looked for.
Was he transient? Did he have a drug
Yes,
habit?
he kind of what they call the van lifestyle. He was one of these guys that he kind of camped out everywhere. So I think his address here was the post office.
Do you know if he'd been in the area a long time?
Few months is what we have.
Can you talk about what led to this breakthrough in the case at this point, 9 months into it?
It's just police work. We kept following up on leads. That he was one that we've been trying to find for a long time. So we'd read some information of where we thought he was at, which it turned out that where we went, we found out that we'd located his car, and that's when we found out that he'd committed suicide. When we located his car.
Where were you able to locate his car, Sheriff?
We're not disclosing that at this time.
Do you know when he died by suicide?
I do, but I don't have the dates with me right now. It was September 24th, the 21st or 24th.
Within a
Month of the hunt. Yes.
Do you know where?
We're not disclosing that at this point either.
Did you have help from cooperating agencies out of
Yes,
state on
and
this?
I'd like to give a big thank you to the FBI, to the Unified Violent Crimes Task Force, Sheriff Rivera, County Attorney's Office, SBI. It's been a team effort, and we'll continue to do so.
This case got some more publicity this week. The presence of Dog the Bounty Hunter. Have you talked to him at all?
No, not at all. No contact at all.
Between your office and his?
No.
Just thought I'd ask.
Nope.
How does it feel to be able to bring some closure to the families after all this?
I will feel better when we have a total closure on this, but it's a huge relief. I can't put it into words right now. I'm so proud of, my staff's working hard. They've never quit. They've kept this going. There hasn't been a day that we haven't worked on this.
How does this stack up in your career in terms of being able to solve something?
This is a big one. This is pretty big.
Anything else you'd say to the public at this point?
Like I say, any information, please come forward. We want to know anybody that had contact with him or might have seen that vehicle on the mountain or even in town. We'd like to talk to them. And we want to tell the public thank you for their continued support of supporting us in our office.
Now, what we didn't know until now is the relationships that were involved. Now, there were some inklings out there and there were some people sharing information. But again, I don't usually like to talk about it until it becomes official. It seems the Pinksewitz worked at the same McDonald's restaurant that the women worked at. He was a van life kind of guy, and he was in the area when the women died. More importantly, he fled town without notice right after the murders. And McDonald's reported that he didn't wait to collect his last paycheck. He just got out of Dodge. Well, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about when did police know and when didn't they know. And again, I just want to reiterate that I've known this sheriff for more than 30 years. I trust him and I trust the process. But here's my question. If the victims in this case knew and worked with Adam Pinksowitz, why would they identify their stalker as a creeper and not say the guy was Pinksowitz, the guy I'm working with at McDonald's? An argument is certainly that they worked different shifts and maybe didn't know each other, but I just don't buy it. It's just something to consider and think about as you put your conspiracies together on whether they really have identified the suspect or not in this case. But now, let's take a little shift in direction and talk about a criminal case that really got my blood boiling while I was overseas. It's a case in Atlanta, Georgia, where a teenage suspect, a gangbanger, shot an approaching police officer 6 times. Now, the issue that's got me so mad, a judge granted this dangerous felon bail. Now, let me lay the groundwork for this video that I want to show you. The officer was attempting to identify the suspect that he believed was wanted for robbery and aggravated assault with a firearm. The suspect was a kid, 22 years old, named Christian Eppinger, a known member of the Young Slime Life street gang. Now, prosecutors say the suspect had been committing violent crimes since he was 13 years old. By age 16, Eppinger was arrested for carjacking a woman and a small child, pointing a gun in their face. When he stole the car and took off and police pursued him, he got in a crash. Well, he was arrested and he was allowed to plead guilty to reduced charges since he was a kid and a first offender. They sentenced him to 5 years of prison plus probation. Now, these kinds of charges should have netted a minimum of like 10 years behind bars. And if that would have happened, that police officer would never have been shot. Now, this kid reported to probation officers one time, and then he went on the lam after that. Let's watch as the officer approaches this teenage gangbanger predator.
Hampton will walk us through.
So again, what you'll see is, the subject being followed by Officer Rogers. Again, as Madam DA indicated, that he was, you go ahead, he was wanted. Officers were all hot on his trail. And again, we just want to show the level of violence and the total disregard of life that this individual had on Officer Rogers, as well as Investigator Will Johnson.
Well, while the judge may have recommended bail, Fannie Willis, the Fulton County District Attorney, who was joined by Atlanta Police Chief Rodney Bryant, criticized the judge's decision to release this kid. Eppinger, again, was arrested and charged with the attempted murder of a police officer, and he remained in jail until that $65,000 bond was granted. Well, within minutes of getting the bond granted, Eppinger, or somebody on his behalf, posted about it on social media saying, quote, "The judge gave me a bond today. I'll be home soon," close quote. Well, the prosecutor said, "No way." And boy, did she ever keep her word. The prosecutor filed racketeering charges against the shooter and a bunch of other gangbangers as part of this bigger indictment against the Young Slime Life gang members. The judge raised the shooter's bail to $2 million. So kudos to the prosecutor and best wishes to that officer as he recovers. Now, finally, karma is great, but the timing in this case was a little bit off. It happened a few days ago as the Edgefield County Sheriff's Office in South Carolina responded to a medical emergency and a report of an unresponsive male lying in his backyard. It was just before 10 o'clock in the morning when police arrived, and they found a lifeless 60-year-old Joseph Anthony McKinnon laying dead on the ground. Investigators said there was no sign of trauma and that McKinnon appeared to have died of natural causes. But then they stumbled upon something that changed everything. While waiting for next of kin to be notified, the investigating deputies discovered a partially buried body in a freshly dug grave. Now, after further investigation, they determined that the body was actually McKinnon's girlfriend, 65-year-old Patricia Ruth Dent. The sheriff made a public announcement that they believed that McKinnon murdered Dent and then, quote, bound her and wrapped her in trash bags before putting her in the previously dug pit, close quote. Well, an autopsy would later prove that this alleged killer suffered a heart attack while he was digging that grave. He apparently tossed the shovel aside and attempted to walk away from the grave, but collapsed in the yard. There's good karma and there's bad karma. What are your thoughts, folks? Take some time and share your thoughts on this week's crime recap. And make sure you're reading each other's responses and your comments and reaching out and commenting back and forth. Together, we not only will learn something from each other, but we might have a little bit of fun along the way. Hey, it's great to be back and be back in my office where I can do things a little more easily. Thanks for subscribing. Please hit the like and subscribe button and join Profiling Evil. That way, you'll get all of our videos as soon as they're released. Hey, folks, we'll see you soon at the next crime scene.